please find settle on it. Stop talking. Settle. Good. Okay. Welcome to today's senior speeches. We ask that you please silence your cell phones before the event to honor today's speakers. Our first speaker today is Alex, will be by his sister, Ashley Lara.
Morning. For those of you who don't know, Alex is an example for what to do and how to act. Alex sometimes sets an example of what not to do. When I was about 3, I learned not to open every single Christmas present under the tree before my parents even woke up. When I was around 8, I learned not to try and escape family dinner with our grandparents and speed away on a bike only to end up with 12 stitches and a mild concussion. And just this year, the most important lesson, I've learned not to turn off my Life 360 or I'll get severely grounded. But all jokes aside, I'm thankful to have Alex as my older brother who can experience life before me. Moments like joking at the dinner table and even fighting when to leave the house to school on time. But without further ado, my brother, Alex Lara. Good luck.
Hello. I'm guessing most of y'all don't know me, but I could probably bet on the fact that you've heard me talk soccer somewhere in this building. Okay, fine. I know there's a few people out there who haven't heard me talk about soccer, so I guess I've lost that bet. Every decision we make is more or less a bet or a gamble that results in our lives changing one way or another. This takes me back to elementary school, where we read The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. One path we take and one we leave behind, not knowing what the path could have led to. Throughout my life, I've taken risks on many occasions that has led me to where I am today. Some gambles as small as playing a wild card in Uno, only to choose, or large as sacrificing my future success in a sport. Although taking gambles in our lives sounds like a life-changing altercation, not every gamble has to be that significant. Take Uno, for example, one of my favorite games to play in a competitive setting. Someone calls Uno, and you are forced to play a wild card and that the card is not. Maybe a gamble that ultimately results in experiencing the bitter taste of defeat as Henry celebrates like Bukayo Saka around the senior lounge. But it doesn't affect anything in the long term. When Kenneth gave a touchdown within 2 minutes, that unfortunately got overturned 30 seconds later. For the rest of the game, I watched as he scored no touchdowns and my friend ended up losing. I would say that it was a gamble that ended up in a losing scenario, but didn't impact our lives dramatically. The first memorable risk, however, was in 3rd grade when I moved into my neighborhood in Indiana. A bunch of 7th graders were playing basketball, and as a little 3rd grader, of course, I was terrified of asking to play with them. Partially because they were 4 years older than me, and partially because I didn't want to watch a team of 7th graders take turns dunking on me under the 7-foot rim. I debated whether or not to ask if I could join the game for an hour or so, but then decided to drag myself to the court and ask if I could join in the next game. I fortunately did not get dunked on, but instead made friends with some of the other 3rd graders that were playing. For the next 4 years of elementary school, I made some of the best childhood memories with the kids in my neighborhood that would not be possible without taking the risk to ask the group of 7th graders if I could play basketball with them. My next biggest gamble was leaving my old school and friends as a 6th grader and starting a new path at collegiate. Coming to collegiate was recommended to me by a coach, but leaving my childhood friends that I grew up with was difficult to do. Looking back on it, choosing a path to attend collegiate has led to everything that has happened so far. putting gel in my hair for 8th grade graduation, growing out my mushroom hair freshman and sophomore years, leaving for a different state. If I had stayed at my old school. However, the biggest gamble I would have to take so far took place my junior year. I had the opportunity to leave Louisville, leaving behind my family, friends, and school in order to pursue my dreams of playing professionally in a different state. This meant going to a new school, meeting new people, and staying with a new family. The decision to move to Kansas City played such a big role in changing my life that looking back on it, I couldn't tell you how my junior year would have been if I would have stayed. After breaking both of my wrists in March 2022, I was faced with the news that it would take up to 5 to 6 months for my wrist to fully heal. In the meantime, I had to make an important decision about my future in 3 days: commit to living and playing in Kansas City for another year, or coming back to Louisville to surround myself with family and friends during my recovery. After making the decision to come back to Louisville after my surgery, I realized that I've parted ways with my dream of playing professionally for now, and instantly wondered if I made the right decision. This was an internal battle I fought with myself that stretched out over 3 to 4 months, constantly thinking of if I made the right decision or not. With the help of my family, I found that no matter how hard I thought about which choice was better, I couldn't reverse the path that I took, and all I could do was live in the present and look forward to the next 2 paths I'd have to choose from. In my eyes, the common ground that unites all of these gambles is making a challenging decision. Whether it's moving to a different state or changing color of the last Uno card to green, these have been difficult challenges that I thought. The outcome of these gambles will ultimately decide which path you follow. The advice that I wanted to leave you all with today is no matter what gamble or decision you make, focus on the present and your journey after the decision instead of thinking back on the endless possibilities of what could have happened otherwise. Thank you.
Our final speaker today is Wills McGregor. Wills will be introduced by his father, Jason McGregor.
Good morning. I'm Jay McGregor, Will's dad. And I have the honor in introducing him today. As I thought about how do I introduce Wills, where do I start? State how proud I am of him? Check. How excited I am for his next chapter? Check. How he has all the tools to be successful in life? Check. All the typical proud dad things. But Wills is anything but a typical kid. Most of you probably describe Wills as an athlete who's been recognized as a leader in various sports. He truly loves the game, and we as a family have memories of watching him from the sidelines. My favorite story from this year was in basketball, and many of you may have seen it, where his brother passed him the ball to hit the game-winning shot against Beth Haven as time expired. But what you don't know is that his sports career started when he was 3 years old, and he was playing indoor soccer, scored a goal from midfield, and as the fans cheered, he ran back to his mom and I, hid in our laps, and wouldn't go back in the game. He has sure come a long ways, and it's been fun to watch every step. Over these last few years, I've watched Wills grow up fast for his family. He has a high school experience that's very unique. He managed half of his time through COVID, maintained a successful academic and athletic for the most part on his own. And in the background of all this, he lost a parent. Through these experiences, he has developed lifelong friendships. He has been surrounded and supported by so many families, including his collegiate family, which have been and always will be there for him. During these difficult years, with so many things asked and required of him, he never complained. He never wavered, and he always would step up and do what was needed for his family, along with fulfilling his academic, athletic, and social obligations. And I know it wasn't easy. And Wills, I hope you know how grateful I am for that. For these and many more reasons, I could not be more proud of you and the young man that you are. And your mom is so proud. Wills McGregor.
Good morning. Everyone in this room has probably dealt with some sort of traumatic, difficult, or sad experience. And after that experience, you probably had people tell you about the importance of talking about it and letting someone know how you feel. I've heard this more times than I can count, and I believe 100% that talking about your feelings does help. But for me, I never knew how. I never felt comfortable or knew where to start when it came to talking about how I felt. A lot of people know the saying, an emotional roller coaster. People talk about how bad that roller coaster is, so I thought, why put myself on it when instead I can push those emotions away? So that's what I did. I put on a front of contentness and okayness whenever I was put in a position where I might have to show any sort of struggling emotions. I put on this front because I didn't want any extra attention, and I didn't want people to feel bad for me. With the mess in my life I was dealing with, I wanted to find some sense of normalcy socially. This front worked for years. I didn't really talk to anyone about how I felt. I kind of just got by. As I got older, I started to recognize how bad it was getting. I was compressing so much negative emotion because I didn't know how to express it. Compressing all this emotion only did bad things for me. Whenever I thought about the bad things in my life, I would lose motivation because all my energy was so focused towards pushing those real emotions away. I even struggled to talk to my own family. This wasn't their fault. They gave me countless opportunities to talk to them, and I wanted to, but I didn't know how. When they asked me how I was, I kept it brief because that's all I knew how to do. My dad was the one who was always able to see through my front. I could always tell with the look he would give me, he knew how I was actually doing. But even though I knew he could tell something was off, I still didn't know how to actually tell him how I was doing. It wasn't until this past year, after my mom passed, that I finally talked to people in depth about how I felt. Last year, I went to Florida for spring break in an attempt to find some sense of normalcy after everything had happened. After a full day at the beach, Pi, Jackson, Mac, and I sat in the back of Madeline's dad's pickup truck, absolutely burnt out from the long day at the beach. We were all quietly looking up at the stars when Pi broke the silence and asked, "Wills, are you okay?" I dreaded hearing this question, so in an effort to put on that front for my emotions and hinder any further conversation, I answered with an automatic, "Yeah, I'm good." But this wasn't enough for my friends. They could see through my front and asked again. For the first time, I began to talk to them about how I really felt. I could feel the emotions starting to build up in my throat from the years of being compressed. My immediate feeling in this moment was to look away in embarrassment. I had never opened up in front of someone who wasn't family. I didn't know if this was normal or how they would react. But when I turned to my friends, I saw they were just as emotional. This was such an eye-opening moment for me. It was the first time I was able to let go of some of the pain I was dealing with. I'll never forget this moment between my friends. They'll never know how much this conversation really did for me, and I'll always be grateful to have people like them in my life. The bond that I knew was already strong grew even stronger, and I now know even more that these guys will always be there for me. Ever since this moment, I've realized the importance of letting those emotions come out, and even more, the importance of finding people who you're comfortable to share those feelings with. I now know that it will never be easy. If you're like me, there's not just going to be a day where all of a sudden you feel the need to just spill out all of your emotions. It takes time, and there's nothing wrong with letting it take time. But there is something wrong with letting your emotions control how much time it takes you to feel comfortable. In this past year, I've learned to not be afraid of expressing my emotions. I've been able to connect with my friends, family, and even coach. Being able to find so many people who are willing to support me when I need it has turned one of the hardest years of my life into a year where I've grown more than ever. I now know that a lot of people probably didn't expect me to stand up here in front of all of you and talk about this. And to be honest, I never thought I would either. Freshman or sophomore year me never would have thought about writing a senior speech about expressing emotion. But now, as a senior who's probably lived some of the hardest years of my life already, I've learned to understand how valuable it is to open up to people. As I wrote this speech, I knew that it might sound like I opened up to people and now all of a sudden everything's easy and life is great. But obviously that's not true. I still have times where I struggle to open up, and a lot of times I still feel like it would be easier to put on that front of okayness, because truthfully in the moment that is easier. I know that I'm not perfect, and I know that I still have loads to improve on when it comes to my emotions. This past year has taught me how I can make those improvements. I think I share a common fear with some people in this room of going to college. The idea that we might lose the support that we found, family, friends, and people within the collegiate community can't be replaced, but I'm confident that I will find people who are willing to support me. Sure, when starting a new chapter of my life, putting on that front might feel like the safe option in a place full of strangers and unknown. But if I let that front control how I feel, I'll only be regressing from all that I've learned over the past year. I urge people who might be struggling to express how you feel to find someone to talk to. There are more people within the collegiate community alone who are willing to be there for you. I want to voice my appreciation again to all the people that have been there for me over the past couple of years. Thank you to my dad and brother for keeping our family strong over the past year. Thank you to the collegiate community for being there for my brother and I, as well as honoring my mom at the Pink Out basketball game. And finally, thank you to my friends. I for real couldn't imagine where I'd be without you guys, and I can't thank you guys enough for being there for me. Thank you.
We need another round of applause for these two amazing speeches.